So what would you like to talk about? We can have this time to discuss anything that is something that you want to talk about or things you'd like to explore about yourself or your relationship with the ministry or wherever you'd like to go with it.
Any requests?
Well, I'm here because I heard, Bobbee, that you had have an illustrious experience with transformational work, but I don't know anything about the type of work you do
Okay.
or have done. So I'm interested in hearing that first.
Is that my background? Okay, well, I I have a PhD in clinical psychology. I also had a parallel career as an international speaker. So I had the good fortune to hook up with the company way back when it was very popular to do, self-enhancement, self-development, the days of the days of who am I, where am I going, that kind of thing. And so I went to work with a company called Career Track. And I was their very first speaker they set internationally. So I had the good fortune to take the personal development pretty much around the world. There's not many countries I haven't spoken in. So that became a grand opportunity to see the world, get paid for it, which is kind of cool. And Chuck had also hitched a ride alongside me. I appointed him my program manager. So he was in charge of setting up all the information with the hotels and getting the seminars organized. So we had a good run, and we could see the world together, which was really totally was a blessing to be able to kind of bumble into that. Now, I'm not completely convinced that we bumble into things blindly. I think I bumble into things because I've done things earlier that set up the requirement for this bumbling to occur. I think there are no accidents in the universe. I mean, there are misfortunes, obviously, but things don't just seem to happen by accident. They seem to happen because of a previous experience or a previous event that caused this reaction to form. So if you look at your own life, I think you'll find that many of the things that you think you kind of stumbled upon or that kind of came to you because of previous kinds of things you had done to set that up, maybe not intentionally, but to put yourself in a position to be receptive to it. I mean, the world can offer you anything that's out there, but if you're not receptive and ready for it, it'll pass you by and go to the next person. I truly believe that nobody is that much more special than anybody else. I think we all have potential, we all have capabilities, but some of us see the opportunity, carpe diem, and some of us don't. And if you seize it and it comes your way, then you can ride that as long as you want to ride it. But if you don't, then it's going to pass you by, and the person that reaches out to take it will get it. So look at your own life and see the opportunities that came your way, and it was probably the result of some previous stuff you had done, perhaps not with the intention of making it happen for you, but that's where it led. How about you, Nikki? Can you think of a time in your life when things kind of came to you, but when you reflect back, you realize you had a hand in that?
Yeah, I think you're setting yourself up energetically to attract it, I think.
I like that. I like that.
Yeah, I was in a career path where I never had to look for a job. Everybody came to find me.
Yes.
And I miss those times. So I need to reset my energies.
And is that possible?
I would assume so.
Why not? I mean, if it was possible once, can it be possible again?
Yeah.
Probably. you, Paula? Can you think of times in your life when things just kind of came to you, but when you look back and reflect, you realize it wasn't by pure chance. Things found you because you were receptive and ready for it.
Yeah, pretty much. When I when I was recruited to help start an adult daycare, I had worked part-time in an adult daycare in another town and really loved it. But again, they cut budget and I had to leave. So I went to work for the visiting nurse instead. And that visiting nurse just happened to get connected with the town I was living in. And they said, hey, do you know anybody who's ever done anything with an adult daycare? And they went, yeah, we got this nurse. And so for 12 years, I helped create and run an adult daycare next door to a children's daycare, which was a real blessing. But there was no coincidence, you know, that
Exactly.
that first job there was a purpose.
When you said, and it just happens that, look at your life. Every time you said it just so happens that, it didn't just so happen.
True.
There was, and is there an unseen guiding hand in this? Most of us would say probably. Is there unseen force? Probably.
I would say so. Yeah, there was a reason.
There's
There was a
always-
reason for every job I switched to. You know, each job
Exactly.
gave me a different kind of experience so that I could go anywhere as a nurse and work.
So,
And believe me, I've had a lot of jobs.
yeah, and I would suggest that you had consciously or not so consciously, you were setting yourself up for success.
I think so, because as with the ministry, if the boss decided to leave, I always ended up with the boss's job until they could find another boss. Because I don't like being boss, but I like being supportive of a boss. And I'm good at filling in, which is exactly what I'm doing for the ministry. But that's been my nursing career. Whenever the boss got fired, quit, whatever, Paula was there on the spot to take over and do the job well until they could find, quote, the perfect person.
So whatever I hear is just so happens, I hear the hand of God.
Right.
There's a force out there, and what it's called, God, Buddha, it doesn't matter what it's called. But there's something in the universe that supports our intentions. And it doesn't matter what our intentions are. I've worked with many people over the years as a psychologist whose intention is to prove to the world that they're no good. And they do an excellent job of that. They do a very good job of screwing their lives up. And no matter the best intentions of those around them that are going to, God forbid, rescue them or assist them or help them or show them the way or enlighten them, that doesn't usually work too well. It has to come from within. It has to come from within who we are and what we're putting out there in our energy. And I do believe the old thing about goes around comes around. I believe that a kind of karmic response to life. So what's your take on kind of a karmic response? I say kind of because, the word karma means anything we want it to. What's your feeling on that? Now, Laura, you've been around for a few years. What's your feeling on that? Oh, Laura left us. Okay.
I just came in. I didn't hear the first part.
Oh, okay. I'm just saying, what are your feelings on karma responses?
On karma?
Uh-huh.
I don't know. I'm not real sure. I'd like to believe that there's karma in the world, but I don't know. I'm not so sure there is.
What does karma mean to you?
Karma is something happens to you and then it comes back around.
Interesting. Sally, how do you interpret this loose term karma?
Which Sally?
Sally Dryer.
There's two of us here.
Right, Sally B and Sally D.
Yeah, Sally D. Karma is sort of it's what you send out comes back. It's on a very spiritual level. It's your as you're on your own personal evolutionary path, the karma is, it's kind of the accumulation of your actions during your life. They set you up for the next step. And
You've
to,
learned that to be true in your life.
yeah, pretty much.
Can you think
To-
of any, concrete examples?
I'm sorry.
Can you think of any concrete examples that would help us?
Well, yeah, I think so. Which sort of incorporates the previous discussion about things in your life that have, that you've prepared yourself for the next step. Karma plays in there too. When I was, I don't know, I think it was 7 or 8 years old, my mother taught me how to sew, started teaching me how to sew. I developed a passion for it my whole life. I still love it. And I parlayed that into costuming
Oh, good.
and joined an organization through which I had the opportunity to try out many different kinds of costumes. And then at one point I was working at Raytheon Corporation.
I'm very
running
familiar with
mechan-
Raytheon.
What?
I used to consult for Raytheon.
Okay, well, I was running a mechanical camera in their publications department
Yeah.
way back before computers,
Yeah, yeah.
when everything was cut and paste. And I was their secretary, and then I was trained to work a mechanical camera, and I was doing some in-house photography and stuff like that. And one day I was presented with an advertisement in the Providence Journal. URI theater department was looking for a costume shop supervisor. So
What's
with my
URI?
background,
I'm sorry, what's URI?
University of Rhode Island,
Oh, thank you.
okay, was looking for, the theater department was looking for a costume shop supervisor. And everybody looked at me and said, that's perfect for you. So given the fact that I grew up in a hardware store family, I knew how to sew. I'd done all kinds of different jobs and things like that. I knew what all I had done because I'd had to have a thorough vetting to get a top secret security clearance for Raytheon. I knew exactly what I'd done in my life up to that point. So I presented URI with my portfolio and my my resume, and they were overwhelmed and decided to hire me. And for the next 35 years, I was a teacher and costume shop manager in the theater department. Now, as a byproduct of that, I became sort of an ad hoc counselor for the students that took my courses.
Interesting.
Um,
That sounds
and that developed out of the fact that I had developed and maintained a safe zone for everybody who came into the costume shop. There was no bitching about other people. There was no backstabbing. There was none of that kind of crap. We didn't talk politics. We didn't talk a lot of stuff. It was a safe place for the students to come and learn about costuming and so forth and so on. And if they were having issues, they could talk to me because I didn't have any judgment, because I thought, well, who am I to tell them what? I'll just listen. And so over the years, if somebody had an issue with another student or with a teacher or just life in general, they would come to me in my lunch hour and we would chat, or they would chat and I would listen. So I became kind of a counselor. This is called on-the-job training, Sally. And so, for 35 years I did that. And at one point around the year 2000, I met someone who introduced me to Bonnie Red Basket, and I started going to her circles. And one thing led to another, and Bonnie was ordained in the Madonna ministry, and I begged her and badgered her and bullied her. And finally, she told me all about it. And then I was ordained in 2003, I think. I think it was 2003.
Mm.
And I've been, I've been part of the ministry ever since. One of the things I just realized when you were talking was that, what do I do in the ministry? Well, I keep the door open and I keep safe space.
You're the
And
door person.
I'm sorry?
You're the door person.
Exactly. I realized that for 12 years during this period of time before I joined the ministry, and even after, I kind of opened the door for people. I mean, Paula came and Laura came, and a whole bunch of other women came through that circle. And I watched their psychic and karmic, I watched them blossom. And I realized that, oh my goodness, I'm a door opener, I'm a way shower. And so that's what I do. That's what I do now. And
You're a door opener.
I'm the doorman.
You're a doorman.
I keep the door open.
You're a portal. You're a portal pointer.
Okay, whatever. Portal person. But that, and physically what I do is I do face painting and body art, and I do henna, and I do Reiki. So I do Reiki with my henna. So I do a healing there. And with my face painting, I make kids happy. So that's my ministry now. That's what I do. And one thing led to another, to another, to another, to another. And I think karma is way in there. So
Yeah.
it's all for good.
I think if you roll it off into a big ball, I think you'd probably call that karma. It's a collection of so many things that we do. Whether we do it with the intent of having a special outcome, or it is a byproduct. Either way, it's wonderful.
Mhm.
How about you, Sally? What's been your experience with karmic kinds of stuff?
Hi, everybody. Well, I had a much more specific, and seemed little compared to the other Sallys. But when you said for a specific example, I remember a friend of mine calling me a long time ago, and she said, I can't find something and I don't know what to do about it, and it's really important. She kind of saw me as kind of a metaphysical person, and I said, well, what I would do is look around your house and see what you probably have that doesn't belong to you and return it. And she had something that belonged to her ex-husband that she didn't want to return, but she did. And then right away, she found that thing that was lost. So that was a very specific example of, okay, what can I do to kind of put things in motion so something comes back to me? And so the end.
So
That was my example.
So does a part of you believe that by giving, I set myself up to receive? I'm not saying that's your only reason for giving. I'm saying, have you found that to be true in your life?
So I guess for me, there's a little bit of a complication in that question, because I have a tendency to give without intention for the purpose of getting back. So I have to be very clear about my intention.
And that is pure giving. That's the only kind of giving there really is.
Say that. I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
I said, you're giving with pure intention. You're not giving so that you could get.
Sometimes I do that, though, is what I'm saying.
No,
So for me,
I think that's called manipulation. We all do that.
yeah. So I'm just saying I have to be intentional about, why I'm giving and what is my intention. And when I get attached to anything, for me, the important thing is to just open up. Okay, I'm going to do the next right thing here, and then I'm going to let go of the result. I have a goddess box. As a matter of fact, my husband this morning couldn't find his keys. that's a pattern for him. And so I put in my goddess box Alan's keys, and closed the top of the box. And the next thing I heard was him coming down and saying, I found my keys. Now, is that related? I don't know, but I'm taking an action with an intention, and, then I have to let go of the results.
And maybe that's why the results are favorable.
I hope so.
I'm not to believe that's true in life in general. I mean, I think if you look at the world rulers and those who have been exceptional leaders, they all seem to be able to live a life of giving out, letting go, give it to the universe, without the need to hang on to the control.
Right. Yep, that's my journey.
Well,
How
I think, yeah, I think that for a lot of us, that control that we're all hoping to find and hang on to is the very thing we do not need.
Well, it's usually based in fear. If I'm trying to control something, there's some fear. So my prayer is always, to the best of my ability, how can I be of service to myself and the other? And then I just try to let go.
I don't think you try to let go. I think you do let go.
I mostly let go, yes. Sometimes I hold on, but when I see that I'm holding on, I let go.
Yeah, because
Thank
that's your intention. Your intention is releasing.
That's right, to make space for divine, a power greater than me. Yeah.
I mean,
Thank
I
you.
think that sometimes that's things we don't think about, but we need to give room for these intentions to come in. And most of us fill up our life with a lot of doingness that's anxiety driven. As a psychologist, I found that many of us, including myself, fill our life with all kinds of busy work and I haven't got time for this, I can't do this, I have to go here, as a way of not being still. And the saying about being still and know that I'm God. How can I know if I'm so busy doing? Maybe for those of us who find ourselves being anxious from time to time, I think it's important to realize that sometimes in just being, that's where the answer is. We don't have to always do it. We're called human beings, not human doings. I think that's for a reason.
I just told my daughter, because she has a tendency to be, she has to be really busy. I said, we have a saying in one of my spiritual circles, don't just do something, sit there.
Love it. I love it.
Bobbee, that I was in a gem store the other day.
I'm
And-
sorry,
and-
Laura. Is that you speaking, Laura?
Yeah,
Okay, I can't see you, so thank you.
I was in a gem store the other day and there was a sign on the wall that said, if you're thinking about shoplifting, remember that karma is a bitch.
Love that.
Oh, I love it. A handy dandy reminder for those of you who are kleptos. That's true, though. That's true. So, how about for you, Kevin? What's your philosophical understanding, your take on anything that we would call karma and that genre?
Yeah, I've always felt that karma is something you put out, you're gonna get back. And whatever you put out, I'm going back to my Calvinistic training onto 70 times 7.
Yeah.
So whatever you put out is gonna come back to you 70 times fold. So you better put out good stuff. But I've kind of taken that. I have a kind of a cynical look at it. I never have to worry about revenge because I know karma is going to take care of it. And so I can go on in peace, And I don't mean that in a cruel way or a bad way or whatever, but the universe is going to straighten itself out. And you just want to put out the best vibes that you can so that it hopefully comes back in your favor. And if not, you should start paying attention. We tend to, things happen to us over and over and over because we don't change. And so we kind of, we don't change our karma. And I tie that right back into where our conversation originally started. And it was, how do you know where you've been or where you're going, sort of thing. And my whole life, I felt, has rolled into the other aspect of it. My theological training, I got kicked out of theology, so then I was, ticked off with anything God related. So I went and worked in a bar for a good many years. And then I fell into a funeral home job. And the guy in the funeral home hired me because I was a bartender. And that would train me for dealing with a lot of the folks. And he was dead on. During that afternoon supper break, they all go for a couple of drinks and come back to the funeral home drunk. And I got to be able to deal with them. So, yeah, so like it all trained me for that moment. And then when I got sick and left funeral service, well, then my talents rolled into 20 years of board work, dealing with grief all the time during the AIDS crisis. And so that has rolled over now into my present day. And like, I feel like it was all connected. I can connect it right back to 5 years old. That everything has just gotten to me to where I am today, and I'm still open to whatever might be coming my way.
So maybe our job in life is to get out of the way.
Yeah. And it was me getting rid of my ego about 15 years ago that I then started pursuing my spiritual, resuming my spiritual path. Because I don't think I ever stopped being spiritual. I just got really pissed off. Excuse my French, but I got really ticked off with what we're supposed to be loving individuals. And so it was my resentment against them. And, I read the saying that religious people always tell you you're going to hell. Spiritual people have already been there. And that really opened up a light in my soul. And I started going back. I started thinking, I'm not going to let them stand between me and my spiritual path. But I had to get rid of the ego first, the ego, the hurt, and whatever. It's not what we do, but why we do anything.
Our ego is generally there as a protective device for all of us.
Self-defense.
Yeah, it's just the part that goes, oh, you're not going to bother me. Yeah, it's the 2-year-old says, you're not the boss of me. It's like, yeah, there are people out there that are the boss of us, in that they they have certain given and inalienable rights. And
Mhm.
it behooves us to know the direction we're going. When do we let go? How to let go?
Yeah.
The thing about let go and let God, to a certain degree, I think there's huge wisdom in that.
Yeah.
But then I'm always caught between let go and let God. And when it goes, yeah, but God helps those who helps themselves. So where are we in that duality?
Yeah. Be still and know that I'm God.
Exactly.
You know, it's that stillness.
But if I'm anxious, the term that we psychologists use for having ants in your pants, this can't seem to settle down to any one thing. It's because I think part of it, the spiritual component of that might be something which is related to seeking, searching, and fearful we'll never find. Fearing that there's an answer out there that we can't quite get our hands on. So it's probably fear-based. I'm guessing, I don't know. I have no idea, but it feels like it's something related to fear or dread or being unsure, being uncertainty. I think uncertainty is a very scary feeling for most human beings. We don't like the feeling of not being pretty sure and certain that something's going to happen. So I think part of that is, I mean, I don't know what's, I either read or heard that my karma got run over by my dogma. and that could be for some of us. I think the role of being dogmatic in life is probably very counterintuitive to being open. I'm not sure, but it feels like that would be kind of a weird connection between the two. What's your take on the relationship between being open and giving and being dogmatic? You asked me.
How about your answer, Nikki?
Charlie wants to hear from you, Nikki. He's back and going, ask Nikki, ask Nikki.
I feel like dogma is tied to ego and all the shoulds and expectations that come with it. And so having that demand for expectation of outcome or possibility creates shields so that we can't be open.
And I think the key word you use there is demand.
Yeah.
I think whenever we get into a demanding situation, we're probably pretty desperate.
Yeah.
Which means we're probably trying to flee from something, but trying to avoid. We don't want to have to face this thing.
Yeah.
Well, it's demand that you think just like me. And I mean, that's pure ego right there.
Mm-hmm.
And demand you to think just like me is not going to get you far. And that's where I think karma's going to come and get you in the end. You know, and it was that dogma that actually interfered with my spiritual development. And my ego held on to that for years and years until I was, pointed in a different direction. Well, I was willing to go in a different direction because I probably had been pointed in that direction years before.
So you used the term you returned. Talk a little bit about that, Kevin.
Well, after the church trial and whatever, I didn't want to have a thing to do with Christians after that. And I learned on the spot that Christian love is actually a code word for gossip within the church. And it was that gossip that had me totally thrown out of everything. Uh, uh, July 7th, I was absolutely alone. But thankfully, when I was 5, that happened to me as well. So I wasn't quite so panicked. I had already been through it at 5. So I knew what it was like and that I was strong enough to get through there. And for years, I didn't have much use for organized religion. And then after my heart softened, then I went back and started developing my spiritual presence that I hope is still around today.
So answer this to the level of your comfort only. That's
Okay.
why you learned apparently a huge lesson in life. Could you share with us what that was, or what that the sense of what that was like at 5 years old?
I was 5 and I was adopted. And when you're an older child and adopted, it has incredible ramifications on you. And I heard it described on TV one day. It is like being a sole survivor of a nuclear attack, because absolutely everything you knew yesterday is no longer present today.
I'm
And
sorry,
that's a hard.
I couldn't hear that. Would you repeat that?
Everything you knew yesterday, when I was 5, everything I knew it for was no longer there the day that I turned 5 and 3 months. My family structure wasn't there. My friends weren't there. Who I looked at, my family ritual or setting, that none of that was there. I was told I was going for a car drive.
Wow.
And I found out I was adopted when I ran around the corner of the house and saw my car driving up the road. Well, you learn a lot of lessons that day, let me tell you.
Yeah, amazing what a 5-year-old was capable of comprehending.
Well, I'm going to get on a little soapbox here when it comes to adoption and what we hand our children around like a pound of hamburger. We don't prepare them, or at least I wasn't. I would hope today would be very different. There was nobody who sat down with me and told me that there were people that needed a boy. There was none of that. Just, we'll take him for a drive and leave him there.
Wow.
Who does that?
So it leaves a child with a sense of having absolutely no control.
Well, but I'll tell you what it does teach you. It teaches you self-dependence.
There you go.
And that I am strong because of me and not because of my surroundings. So in that way, it's kind of a good lesson.
Fascinating.
That's what you call tough love.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
And we do the same thing today. I see what's happening in the States and reproductive rights and whatever, and there's going to be thousands and thousands of children just like me who are going to be put into this sausage factory and produced. We'll have a daughter over there or a son over there, not caring about the child that's been put up for adoption. Even you can't grow up in a family with enough love. You just can't. I have no doubt that I was surrounded with love, but as a 6-year-old, that didn't matter. I didn't have the love of the family I left behind, and we're continuing to do it.
And you didn't leave of your own accord.
Pardon me?
You did not leave of your own accord.
Oh, no. I was told I was going for a car drive, and I was a poor inner city kid. That to me was a big deal. Even if I did get car sick twice on the drive, to me, it was wonderful that I was in the car.
The power of deception.
Yeah. When all it would have taken was a little bit of honesty to kind of like help to soften the transition some. But that has to come from a caring society. And one thing I just went through the retirement process, so I'm dealing with all these letters from the government. Not one letter has said, congratulations, you've reached retirement. They're all half accusing me of trying to rip the system off. And when I call them on the phone, I'm in their way. It's because not enough people care. I want to know who writes the letters I get in the mail. There's not a speck of warmth in any of those letters. And that all goes back to the right people need to be in the right jobs,
Well,
and
what is
karma
your-
would put them there.
What is required of those of us who at least profess to be interested in spirituality? What's asked of us? What's required of us to make a change there? I think that anybody can answer that. I mean, what is asked of us to start making some adjustments to give the world more of what it needs?
For
to
me,
help?
excuse me, I
Go
was
ahead.
just going to say, for me, it has a lot to do with, and this I had to learn both as a woman, where I grew up in my family of origin and the church that I grew up with, that I have to focus on me, that I have to take care of myself first, that what I give from fullness within me, as opposed to giving to get something back. So for me, it requires spiritual practice in which I am in prayer and meditation on a regular basis, so that I can be honest about what's going on with me. Sometimes I'm journaling, sometimes I'm going the 4 directions from my shadow work training. Sometimes that's going to a 12-step meeting or being here with you. And so I'm able to kind of empty and breathe into, how can I be of service to myself and others? And I have a lot of spiritual practices. I light candles. I have a goddess box. I sit quietly and meditate. And for me, that's what's required, that I have to care for myself well and fill myself up so I can give to others from that fullness.
Yeah, I think we're back to the putting the mask on yourself
Mhm.
in an airplane. There's no point in helping other people. You have got if your air supply is being cut off. You're not going to help very long. What, 3 minutes max? So I really like that, Sally, that sense of tell me, since you're fairly new to us, to this organization, how long have you been with us
now? 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks.
And they said it was last. What did they?
That's right.
What do you want to give? What is your heart telling you that you want to give?
Do you mean as part of a ministry? What do I want to give?
Whatever giving means to you.
Yeah, my prayer is always, how can I be of service to myself and the other? So I'm focusing on managing my life responsibilities. You know, my husband and I are separated, so I want to be of service to him and to our children. And I'm actually in the process of really looking, what is my vision moving forward in terms of how I want to share my medicine in the world. I've done lots of deep emotional healing work with people and a lot of teaching in the past. So for me, more will be revealed. I'm not certain what's next, but I'm here and I'm showing up and I trust the process. So
I love that. If you would talk more about your shadow work, I think that's, to me, I'm personally interested in that. I think the rest of people could be too. Talk about the shadow work.
well, if you go to shadowwork.com, you'll see the way that I was trained. This was a process that was created by a man named Cliff Berry, and he's always had, of course, a lot of women around him. And we work in 4 different archetypes. We work in a sovereign archetype, we work in a lover archetype, a warrior archetype, and a magician archetype. And when we work with people, we help them to identify those energies within them and the gifts that they have, and maybe how they have been hurt in one way or another, because we're all wounded. So we look at how we can bring some of those parts of us that we've hidden out of shadow and receive the gold and the gift from them, and then translate that into our lives.
So is this based on a lot of Jungian philosophy?
It's a lot of Jung. And we also work in 4 directions. So we give a lot of gratitude to indigenous cultures. We work in these archetypes, which of course is very Jungian. And we're very, when we work with people, we believe that they are really in charge. So there's a lot of consensuality and respect for people to go where they want to go. And the first question is always, whether it's a personal session or whether it's in a group, what do you want to have happen here? So we have people immediately connect with their own sovereignty, because when we're in our sovereignty, we know what we want. We might not get it, but we know, knowing what it is important, and what is our vision for ourselves. So it's a really beautiful, the way that we are trained is very much about creating safe containers and consensuality. And, you know, we're taught so many amazing tools and skills and practices to support people and being more fully alive in their lives. So I feel a lot of gratitude for, you know, having found shadow work.
I think it's fascinating. I've always been entranced by the work of Carl Jung. Those of us who have studied psychology and gone deeper into it, he's the one figure, historically so, that seems to stand out, that spoke about the role of spirituality and how important that really is in a human being's life. He didn't talk about God per se, he didn't give it a name, but he talked about that connection, how we desperately need that, how humans need that. And without that, we're lonely.
Yeah. For those people who are familiar with 12-step spirituality, Bill W. and Dr. Bob, I don't know how they connected with the psychologist overseas, but that was Jung. And Jung was the one who said, this has to be a spiritual solution. So the 12 steps are set up to be a spiritual solution. We can only do so much on our own. We can show up, you know, but really it's a spiritual solution. We have, you know, for me, for my healing to happen, I can show up and say, here's my woundedness, here's my ego, but it's really, I can't change myself. I can only show up and seek a spiritual solution. That's just my belief. People can believe different things about that, but
of course,
yeah,
of course. And that's the beauty of living in a free country, where you can make up your mind what you wish to believe, what you don't want to believe, and you can profess so loudly, and no one's going to put you in jail for that. That's not true in all parts of the world.
Yeah.
some parts of the world, that's not allowed. But we do have that kind of freedom, for which I think we're all grateful. So how about for the rest of you? What's your feeling on making a connection with spirituality in your own life? What does spirituality mean to you in your own life? The broad topic.
I equate spirit with energy, and we're all energetic beings. All of life, all life forms are energetic beings. And so being open and one with all is kind of the ultimate goal.
Yeah, when we talk about emotion means energy in motion. It means energy flowing through us. That's why we have this feeling, this emotion is energy flowing in us. And I guess the real trick to life, number one, as I said earlier on, getting out of the way and let energy flow. And then number two, knowing what to do. If I do get in the way, if I do want to intercede in that, what's my role? What do I do in to guide my own spiritual life? What's required of all of us to do that? And I think we're all called upon to do something to put forward our own spiritual sense of being in the world. What that means for us.
Last week, I said what? Spirit is a no thing. Spirit is a no thing. So look at me, I'm becoming an apparition. I'm a ghostly apparition. I'm becoming a no thing.
What does that mean? I don't get that. I missed the point.
Okay. Some philosophies talk about spirit being a no thing. That means you could say it's just energy. You could say it's something before creation. It's the power that animates all creation, but in itself, it's a no thing. So God doesn't have a shape or form, or a spirit is a no thing, but it animates and brings into creation everything. It empowers creation. So, in a sense, you look at it like a movie. The projection on the screen of life is everything. Everything we see, everything we touch, everything we feel is a projection. But the power that projects it is another thing. It's the light that gets through the process of our belief systems that create creation. So it's difficult idea to explain, but for me, if we are a no thing, then we can never be created or destroyed. So that the experience of life as a thing, we get enamored into relationships and in our own creations. We're co-creators in that sense. But inevitably, to find our way back to the no thing requires what? It requires almost a dissemination or almost an obliteration of our belief in things. And so how do we get there? Well, that's where so many religious teachings or spiritual teachings teach us through humility, through forgiveness, to arrive at a no thing. And that no thing could be love, the thing we try to identify and call it love. Or we could call it the peace that passes understanding. Or we could call it unlimited joy. So those aspects of love, of peace, of joy that are absolute, they're an old thing. So that's, and getting back to karma and listening to everybody, it gave me another clue about karma. And the clue was, it's done to us as we believe. So if we believe in something, or we disbelieve it, it's so. And so that's how powerful the spirit within us is. If you believe it, Bobbee used to teach, you be you. What'd you teach? Believe it, you live it.
You live it. Yeah.
If you believe it, you live it. That means you become it. If you,
Or you live your life in such
yeah,
a way that
you live
bring
your
it
life,
into being.
yeah, you live your life that
Yeah.
way. So anyway, that's my take on it. Thank you. And I really enjoy everybody's. I love the way Bobbee invites everybody to participate. And I get to know each other so much better. And maybe that's part of life, is what life is about. It's getting to know the essential nature of each of us. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you.
So what is the essential nature of each of us? I mean, I think that most of us would say we're spiritual beings. I mean, that's kind of, we kind of outcast this group who didn't say that, right? We're supposed to believe that, and I think most of us do believe that. But how do we get to this point in our life? Paula, what has been your search in looking for your own spirituality?
It's hard work. And,
Oh,
and you
don't
have,
tell me that. I don't want to hear that.
well, it is, and it has to be done by you. No one can do it to you or for you.
Oh,
You
you're
have
such
to
a-
do
you're
it.
such a meanie.
I'm terrible. But I went to the school of hard knocks, so.
We don't really want to hear that I have to get up off my butt and do something. We don't really want to hear I need to take responsibility for it myself.
But you do.
There's a concept called learned helplessness.
Yes.
Dr. Martin Sullivan wrote a book about learned helplessness. And we all learn to play helpless. And that's kind of a safe place to hide. Well, I'd like to, but I don't know how. I mean, I don't know what to do. Well, do something. What did you say a while ago? Don't do something, just sit there.
Mhm.
And maybe that's the answer. Maybe it's not the doing this. Maybe it's the being this that makes the difference. The time is up. Oh gosh. Okay, too bad. Well, such a great fun. I really loved being with all of you. Sally, we're so glad that you found our group. We hope you'll hook your rope to our wagon and follow us along. Sally, Paula, Nikki, Kevin, lovely to have all of you here. Thank you for participating. Namaste.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
so much.
you.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
Any thoughts on next week's topic? Anybody want to
Oh, yeah.
volunteer to lead?
Don't all speak at once.
I think I agreed to
February
the
5th.
3rd or 5th, but I can do next week instead, and I can yield to anybody else who wants to step up next week.
I wish you'd be more cooperative, Sally. That's your problem. You're just not accommodating enough. So would someone else like to do it, or shall we just let Sally be the one.
I vote for Sally B.
I vote for Sally B.
It's you now.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much. It will be a privilege.
Yeah,
Okay.
just let me know what your title wants to be so I can put it in the newsletter.
Oh, yeah.
Ooh, a title. Okay, thank you.
She'll put that in her funk and right, we'll get back to you. Have a lovely day.
Thank
All
you
right.
very much,
Thanks so much,
Bobbee.
everybody.
Thank you.
Sings
Love
one
to
all.
all.